I knew I was going to be a fee-for-service office, but I knew I had to set myself aside. I can't just say, hey, we don't accept your insurance, but also we're like everybody else. What I wanted to build is what is built. It was so scary going into a fee-for-service office, and I don't regret it, not one bit, not one day.
Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Practice Lodge podcast. I, of course, am your host, Shane Simmons. The Dental Practice Lodge podcast is presented by Crimson Media, your startup dental marketing company. And this series, as you all know, you're listening to this now, this is episode 2. If you didn't catch episode 1, definitely go back and check that out in this series, because we are highlighting unique and successful startups all across the United States, different types of practices, pediatric, general, in-network with PPOs, out-of-network fee-for-service, and really just trying to highlight and show what's making these startups unique and stand out in their communities, and kind of getting inside the thought process of building their practice. So that way, those of you listening, maybe you have a startup, or maybe you're considering doing a startup, you have kind of a little bit of a blueprint, a map of what others have done that's made them successful here early on. And today is going to be a fun episode because we have one of our actually awesome clients at Crimson Media too, but Root Modern Dentistry's owner, Kriska Mustafa, who is in Ashland, Virginia, or at least the Root Modern Dentistry is in Ashland, Virginia. And Kriska, first off, thanks for joining us. We were just joking because Kriska's like, I don't even know, who I am anymore. I've been on like podcast episodes and all of these things that I couldn't even imagine since the practice has opened. You're just kind of making your rounds here on all the different, podcasts, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know my identity anymore. I don't know if I'm a dentist or a celebrity. No, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a past 8 months.
Yeah, it's funny, all the different things that go in and kind of change, after you've opened a practice. But her practice has been one of, which is why we're highlighting it here, but one of the more unique startups that we have worked with. And it's been really cool just to see, this thing come to life from concept to, now being open for several months. So, Kriska, if you will, just give us a little background here. When did you open officially? And as of, today, maybe if you want to share a little insight as far as, your team size and, where you guys are at as far as, just in the growth since you did open. But start with, when did you open?
Yeah, so we've been open for less than a year. We opened December 11th, 2023. That was our first actual day of seeing patients. And we started with just like a skeleton crew. It was myself, one front desk admin, and one dental assistant. And we had one dental assistant and a part-time dental assistant, one day a week. And we have grown to now we have 3 dental assistants, 2 part-time dental assistants. We have 2 front desk and another part-time front desk admin, and myself. And hopefully we can bring on Matt here soon at some point. But
and that's her husband, for everybody who's wondering, who is also a dentist.
Yes, he is. And he is in the background in a lot of things, but he's part of the success, and he's the cheerleader. And sometimes that's the most important role that you need to tell you to just keep going. But it's been a really exhilarating process, and just seeing ourselves grow in the past 8 months, 9 months. I have to sometimes pinch myself because I'm such a result and just goal oriented person, and I kind of want to reach results quick, but I have to realize, like, step back. It's been 8 months. You're doing great. Keep going. And oftentimes it takes my monthly marketing calls to remind me of that. And sometimes I just like, I can't wait to talk to Shane to remind me of that we're doing okay.
Yeah, it's, as a business owner, and that's the biggest thing, even myself, that I had to adjust to since, I've almost been doing this for a decade now, so like 9 years. But it's like we get so caught up in the day to day, and you know how dentistry can be too. It's like
Yeah.
you have one day where you have some, no shows or cancellations, and they're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's like this is awful. And when you own the practice, totally different from when you're an associate,
Uh-huh.
at the practice. And so then I think it's zooming out, saying, okay, put my business hat owner on here,
Uh-huh.
and zooming out and looking at, okay, how's the last few weeks been? How's the last month been? What's the trend looking like? I think getting that puts it into perspective. Has that been one of the maybe the things that you're starting to learn or feel like you've had to learn, and just through experience?
Yeah, absolutely. As an associate, I would celebrate when I came from corporate dentistry. I would celebrate when 2, 3 people would cancel. I'd be like, oh, thank God, I can relax, I can breathe a little bit. As a business owner, emotionally affected at first. Why did somebody cancel? Why would they not want to be interested in our office? Why did not prioritize their schedule to our schedule? But every time it's been a opportunity for me to take that moment, focus on, okay, I'm actually a business owner. Let me just step away from the clinical, take advantage of this hour block that I have in my schedule and focus on how I can improve my business. And it's days like that and moments like that that allow me the opportunity to think, oh, maybe I should contact this person and think about collaborating. Maybe I can think of a new social media topic to post. Maybe I can reach out to Shane and say, hey, I want to do this. Or like it allows me to focus on the business and not so much be on the clinic side. But it's hard to step from being an associate for 4 years, 5 years, and stepping into a business owner and a clinician, because you don't allocate that time from a business, like what is important for your business. Emotionally and psychologically, you're in just clinical zone.
For
And so
sure.
that has been the biggest challenge, but it's been a blessing when somebody cancels. It allows me to focus on that time that I normally don't give myself that time.
Yeah, time optimization, right, and time management
Mm-hmm.
is huge, and that's no joke. Why they say CEOs for a small business is chief everything officer in many ways, because it's like not only are you doing the dentistry, but you're doing, like you said, these collaborations, which we're going to talk a little bit about too. You're trying to plan things, manage team, maybe you're hiring, and certainly you want to delegate as much as you can. And I think that's where people get stuck in at the beginning is trying to delegate the right tasks and making sure that, hey, what's the best use of my time? And you've definitely done a great job with that. There's so many different things for those listening that we're going to jump into: collaborating with other businesses in the area and the impact that can have. Social media, you have an awesome social media presence. Everybody check out on Instagram, Facebook, Root Modern Dentistry. Definitely got to go search that. You'll find some great content and ideas there. But first, let's rewind. And you were an associate. You then said, I want to start my own practice. I want to be an owner. When that all started to kind of come to fruition, I guess, did you always have the vision for what Root Modern Dentistry is today? Like, was that from the beginning of the concept, like what you knew you wanted to be, or did that morph over time? And how did you really come up with this concept of being unique and having kind of a unique twist to the practice that you're building? I'd love to hear kind of the foundation of that.
Yeah, well, I would love to say I just knew every single detail of this office, from the front to the back to the design to the everything, but I didn't. I knew the idea of what I wanted. I wanted a dental office that when people came into, the anxiety was released in the waiting room. I going to hair appointments and nail appointments, and typically these places are nice, the ambiance is nice, it immediately puts you in a environment where you're like, oh, this is self-care. It's like the difference between walking into a Days Inn and a Ritz-Carlton, right? Like there's just a different feel from the waiting room. And at that point, it's like, if you pay for a $9 coffee at Days Inn, you're not going to value it. If you pay for a $9 cup of coffee at the Ritz-Carlton, you're going to expect it. But it's not just an overvalued, it's, hey, this cup of coffee comes with this ambiance, it comes with this experience. And I knew I was going to be a fee-for-service office. this, but I knew I had to set myself aside. I can't just say, hey, we don't accept your insurance, but also we're like everybody else. And that's just how we are. So I wanted to start that from the waiting room and make it if you come into our waiting room, it does not look like a dental office. It looks like a lot of people are like, yeah, I didn't even know if I was at the right place, if this is a spa or what it is. And we have a travel book on the front desk and a birthday book on the table that people read about that has nothing to do with dentistry. There's no ads that says, do this to your smile if you and what a root canal is, what a periodontal disease is. They are not mentally in a clinical setting. So immediately that makes my job a little bit easier as the clinician, right? Not everybody gets delivered good news at the dentist. You're told something and you're given a value that's attached to that. And oftentimes you need it, and that's the value, and you have no choice unless you don't want to do it, really. But the person is automatically in a nice mental headspace. When they come back to me, we use in the back, we have our AI tool, we have our 3D scanner, we have we educate the patient in a friendly environment in the back. And I also, when designing that, I said, okay, I want to design the operatories more modern, less clutter, less things in the room, make the patient not be stressed about seeing things. The less they see, there's a plant in the room, there's a TV on the screen, nothing else in the patient's visible area. The counters, the back portion has a computer for the doctor, and that's it. Everything else is hidden. So patient's mental health was really important to me. And then how the patient interacts with the team. When hiring the team, I knew I wanted people that I would want to communicate with when I'm at a doctor's office, people that are personable. Their personality is huge. All of our patients are close friends with the dental assistants. I actually had to recently walk in on a patient who was here for a 5-minute appointment. She's a close friend of ours now. She was here for a 5-minute appointment, and she was overstaying her stay for 50 minutes because she was watching a Netflix show with my dental assistant.
At the dentist, right?
I know. And I said, all right, well, we'll see you in 6 months. She goes, I have to wait for 6 months to come back and watch the show. I want to come back sooner. And to me, nobody really says that. People can't wait to leave the dentist. And we've had what I wanted to build is what is built. So experience, ambiance, all of that took account into the design of the building, but the patient experience came first. But it also reminded me it can never outweigh the team experience. My team has to be happy. My team has to like where they're working. My team has to have things available to them to provide the patient the experience I want them to have. My team has to have that. So we have noise canceling headphones, we have earplugs, we have heated blankets, we have a warm lavender towel the patient ends their appointment with. All of these are resources that our team has to give to the patient to give them the experience that I want them to have.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, that is so good. And it really encapsulates one of the reviews that you all got in the last few weeks, where basically they said, and I quote, "This place will change the way you feel about going to the dentist." That was a quote there from one of your Google reviews. And it definitely goes into all of the things that you're talking about and putting that in place and making it feel different. And I think that's important for those listening is, if you're Kriska mentioned, being pretty much a fee-for-service startup, a lot of people may look at that and say, whoa, that's a risky thing to do. That's a very risky. Being a startup in itself can be risky, but being a fee-for-service type startup. So you knew right away that you had to do something that was going to be able to make you stand out and make patients value that if they're going to potentially have to pay more out of pocket. So that's massive. I know that there was some, it's not all easy when going through this process. And I know specifically with some of the design elements, and for those of you who don't know Kriska, when she has a vision and something that she puts her mind to, she's going to make it happen. Come hell or high water, she's going to make it happen. And I know that there was some design things, I think, within the waiting room that we talked about. Can you discuss a little bit about that? Because it's a really cool touch to the office, but it also, I think you had to really push, contractors or whoever.
Yeah, my my poor contractors. There was one thing I really wanted was glass doors with black frames on them. That was one of the stuff. And my contractor was like, this is residential. You can't have this in commercial. My guys can't do this. And so I reached out to multiple glass companies myself, and they were like, hey, we don't do this service. We don't do this service. So finally I asked one of the glass companies, where do you get your glass from? And they said, oh, we get it from this distributor down in Virginia Beach. I said, great. I called the distributor and I said, who are the glass companies that you guys know that can do something like this? And I sent them the picture, and they connected me with a glass guy not too far from here. And they're like, oh, this guy does stuff like that. Great. I called Caraway Glass. I said, hey, I heard you guys do this. I found out from your distributor who you get your glass from. I need this project done. So they were able to come out, and I did it outside of my contractor. I scheduled with their schedule, obviously not overstepping their guys, but we got the glass doors. And then the other things were, I really wanted penny tiles in the front waiting room that had a message on it, kind of like a doormat. And my contractor was like, oh, my tile guys can't do that. They just don't design stuff like that. I mean, if you want to do it yourself, you can. So I went, got the tiles, found the pictures on Pinterest, laid out the penny tiles, tile by tile, taped it up, and had my contractor's tile guy come and set the tiles the way I had put it down. Oh, wow. So just things like that I knew I wanted. I wanted ceiling beams in the waiting room. I think it makes the place more homey and more welcoming. And our contractor was like, yeah, the ceiling cannot withstand the weight of that beam. There is no way we can put wood beams up there. And so together with our project manager, designed like a artificial beam that's like hollow on the inside, and it's up there. It's beautiful. No one will ever know, except everyone listening to this podcast now knows it's not a true ceiling beam. But the point is if you have a vision, like for me, this was my whole life project. I've wanted an office my whole life, so I wasn't going to cut corners. I also, like you said, it's very scary walking away from a steady income and saying, I'm going to open an office and I'm going to be fee for service, because you're not a priority person to go to. People go on their insurance, who their insurance recommends, that's who they go to. They try to keep costs down. It is very, very scary. But if you truly believe what you're doing is valuable and you're going to be successful, it will go above beyond any doubt that you have, and just keep going. And same thing to your design. If you really want something, find a way and make it happen. Reach out to somebody that's done it before. I don't even know the amount of people that have reached out to me that has asked for design tips I have no design degree. I don't know anything about design. I have a million different color of woods in my office that I'm sure if an interior designer came in here, it'd be like, what the hell are you doing? But I've had a ton of dentists reach out to me, and I think that's fantastic that you reach out to your colleagues for advice, somebody that has been through it before and don't mind giving advice.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes in dentistry, we can put ourselves in these silos almost, where, it's like I don't know if it's just intimidation of, oh, is this person, just going to ignore me, or I don't know what it is, but I think there needs to be definitely more of that, where dentists can collab together and be like, hey, here's some ideas, some things that we've seen work. And now the world of social media, it's like, I know you've had people from all over the country, reach out to you that you would have never met before, who've just kind of found you through. And I think that that's a really good idea. It's like, you don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. Somebody's probably done something similar to what you're wanting to do in one way or the other. So it's something that you can reach out to and get any advice and feedback on. The piece there about the being, again, fee for service being different from the design elements, and you saying, hey, no, we're going to make this happen. Like, I'm not taking no for an answer. We're going to figure that out. That was just one piece there that led to, I think, a lot of the, success that you all have had because of that kind of mindset. But let's also talk a little bit about, growing and the marketing. And, certainly that's something, we collaborate with and do a lot of marketing things with you, which has been, fantastic. But you also have a great social media presence that, you have content regularly coming out that's very well produced. Can you talk a little bit about the Instagram, reels that y'all do, and how often do you film those? How long does it take? Do you have to come up with the ideas? How much time investment goes into it? And what's the feedback been like from the community?
Well, let's start with the feedback. The feedback has been fantastic. My office is in an area with a heavily retired community, and these are people that want information, but they don't want to read paragraphs and research articles and literature. They want a video that's quick, that's reliable, and it's not just a DIY tip at home. It comes from a clinician. It's backed up, but it's also quick. They're 30 seconds, and it's knowledge that maybe wasn't given to them. So the feedback is great. I mean, patients that come in say, "Oh yeah, I saw your video on Facebook. So and so shared your video on Facebook. I had no idea that's how you floss. I didn't even know I had to scrape my tongue." And one lady said, I'm part of the baby boomer generation, and I feel like our generation we are at a disadvantage when it comes to oral health, and your videos are teaching me things I've never known my whole life, and I feel like if I've known this, I wouldn't have the amount of stuff in my mouth existing. I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that my video could have such a big impact. But I wanted to provide my Instagram's kind of interesting, my social media. It's targeted for patients, but it's also targeted at other dentists too, that other clinicians, because it has relatable dental humor that an everyday dentist goes through. Like if ordering inventory, it's like, oh my God, why is everything adding up so quickly? I did a video on that. Or as a dentist, you become your own technician. You got to fix your high speed, fix the water, figure out what's not working. But then it also has educational tools for patients and patients that choose to follow us on social media. When I was looking at who I want to create this content, I found this freelance videographer out of North Carolina and just reached out to him. I'm so good at just reaching out to people, hoping they answer me. And if it's a no, then I tried. I said, hey, I'm in Virginia. I don't know if you do this, but I would love to see if you could create content, blah, blah, blah. And he was very nice. He reached back out to me. Aaron is his name. And he was like, yeah, this is how we do it. You just kind of tell me what topics you want to talk about. I'll come up. We can shoot 12 videos worth in one day, so we don't take much of your time. And because you're in a drive and dentists don't like to take much time off, we'll record it all in one day, and then I'll provide you with it, and you can post them how you wish. And then call me when you need me again for another set of videos. And I thought there was no pressure. There was no contract with that. It was just, hey, if you like it, great. If you don't want me to come back, great. But just exude confidence of what the service he did was good. And Aaron came, I gave him the topics I wanted to talk about, and he choreographed everything. He did his own research and said, hey, from an outside non-dentist person, I think these facts are interesting. I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know that you floss your tooth in a C shape, hugging the tooth. And for me, that was really important because as a dentist, I know that. And when somebody says, I didn't know that, I'm like, well, you live under a rock. How do you not know that? But it was information that, and because he designed it, an outside non-dental person, the videos have turned out fantastic. And it's what patients want. Like the common question, does a water flosser replace a floss? Can I just use a water pick? So we get these videos, we release them how we want on a schedule, and I combine it with other content like I told you, or just funny content before and afters on my page. I combine everything, but the educational tool really patients refer to, they mention in office, and they share a lot on Facebook. The baby boomer generation love Facebook, and they share the videos.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, they're great. Again, check it out. We'll put the details in the show notes here so everybody can go and see and get some ideas for maybe content that they can film. But a couple of things there. One, you're using social media in a way that's not to just check a box, because I feel like that's what too many people do. It's like they post something very generic, very bland. And that's why me personally, even as a marketing company, we recommend the office manage like the day-to-day social media posting, because it's like, in order to be authentic and really share, that culture of the office and what's going on, I feel like you need to be there or have somebody somewhat local that can come in and do like what you're saying, they're doing, and then post that. So I think that's important. But the fact that you're actually doing too, like helpful content and not just basic, again, just checking the box. You mentioned you do about 12 videos or so at a time coming up with the topics. one, how long on average are the videos once they're edited? Because I know they're kind of like reel style. So on average, how long are those? And then when you do film those videos, how long of a time commitment is that to knock out 12 videos? And have you gotten, faster at it as you've done it more, I imagine?
Yes. So the videos are aimed to be 30 seconds or less. It's supposed to give you the information and move on with your life. The day looks like the team will probably come in around like 8 a.m. They'll set up their camera, their microphones, everything. It's a whole scene. I mean, that plus the podcast appearances I've had lately. I don't know, Shane. Build a statue behind me.
Great. That's absolutely great.
But they set up, and then Aaron will say, okay, do you want a teleprompter? Do you want me to feed the lines to you? I've tried both. I'm more of feed the lines to me one by one, just because you'll see my eyes tracking one. And it's not that you don't know the information. It's that when there's a camera in front of you and there's a microphone on top of you, and you know that this is going to an audience, you become nervous. Your voice starts cracking. You forget the lines. You forget to say brush twice a day. You're like, brush, what am I saying? So the initial day probably takes around 8 hours to record these 12 videos. But then last session that he came, I mean, we were done in probably 5 hours. We just got quicker. And I think next time I'll have him back around, we'll hopefully be done quicker. He comes up with, I don't know if you've seen our video, but there's humor in it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I told Aaron that was important to me was I involve humor in a lot of the things I do, even in the way I present treatment plan. I think humor makes everything just lighter. And the videos all have a little slight humor in it if you can catch on to them in the video. There's a Darth Vader one that we actually won Best Video at the Academy of Dental Sleep Medicine down in New Orleans this past spring for the best educational video on sleep appliance. And that one has a Darth Vader, which Matt wants credit. He is Darth Vader in that video.
Yeah, that was a great one. Like, I remember watching that one, and I remember even when you got that award, you messaged me. I was like, "That is amazing!" And like, yeah, and I think too, it's like it goes into if you're going to film that type of content, making sure that whoever's helping you with it is mixing some of your personality into it. It's hard to try to be something that you're not. And like you said, you add humor into when you're talking to patients. It's just kind of a little bit of who you are. So adding that into, the content, it just is authentic all the way through, and patients can tell that. And I remember like even with like on the website when we came out, and of course like the videography and stuff, that we did that was on the website. Our videographer, Robert, when he came back, he's like, this group is fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, he always like calls me after the day. He's like, this group was fun. Like, this was great. And so I think that that's, again, trying to, if you're a fun group, not everybody, is going to maybe consider themselves super fun and all of that. But if you are, it's like, do not be afraid to try to show that and highlight that. That's what makes you, and patients want
it. Yes, patients love it. We have, any inside joke we have with the team, our patients are in on it. We have a room that we just built out that I'll have to send you a picture of. It's our pink room. And there's a sign on the wall that says, I need money for a Porsche. And I think it's so funny because there are those patients that say, my crown will pay your boat payment. My crown will pay your beach house payment. So I think if you're going to make the comment, we will put an artwork up that says, your crown, we need money for a Porsche.
That's great. You need a sign. It's like, you're paying for my student loans. That's the one that people usually review
and my business loans. I know. But it's been, I do think as authentic you are, your business will be successful. If you try to hide behind being someone that you're not, or building a brand that you really are not passionate about, that will be seen. It was so scary going into a fee-for-service office, and I don't regret it. Not one bit, not one day. Our patients that choose us value us. They come back to us. They refer their family. Our biggest source of referral. Sure, we've collaborated with other businesses, but word of mouth, referral, reviews, and I'm just blown at the amount of people that say, "Oh, so and so mentioned you at the gym." Like, so and so remembers my name. So,
and that's what you want to build on. That is so key there, because that's what we always talk about with, marketing too, especially, at the beginning. But it's like, yes, you want to be, marketing and doing the things on social media. And of course, with your practice, we also, a lot of that content that's filmed, we, run those as ads on social media. We run ads on Google, which has been a whole other thing that's been great. But all of that at the end of the day is to bring patients in so they get that experience, that Root Modern Dentistry experience. They get to know you, get to know the team, what makes you all so unique, and all of those things we talked about, and then refer other patients. So you want to build your internal referrals, but you want your external marketing that comes from your Google ads or Google search, social media ads, whatever, to then bring patients in that are also going to refer. So that one patient turns into 2 or 3 patients, maybe over a 12-month period. And I think that's where practice owners need to, again, put maybe the business hat on and realize, there's a lot of people I've talked to who's doing a startup, and they're like, well, I didn't budget for marketing. I budgeted for a website, but I didn't budget anything for marketing at all. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? I mean, it's not just digital. You don't want to put all your eggs in that basket, but you got to diversify. And I guess, so what have you seen from the beginning here? Because you've got so many avenues of marketing, paid advertising, non-paid. What's that been like? And just curious, what you've seen there and if that's been beneficial.
It's scary when you see numbers. You're thinking, why do I need to invest this much in marketing? I'll be fine. But again, it's one of those things where if I talk to a friend of mine and they're like, hey, I'm not bringing in patients, invest in marketing. I mean, Shane, everybody I talk to, I'm like, you got to talk to somebody in marketing. I know the numbers seem scary, but when you do the math, it's worth it. And as a startup, marketing is one of the most important things. And me, like you said, I'm more result focused. And if I don't see the results quick, I'll do other avenues of things to make sure things are working. I did mailers to see if that worked. I did. And I know you advised me against it and I still did it and you were right, but we'll get back to that at another point. But
hold on, let me see. You said I'm right. Let me save that. So then that way I can send that to my wife later, and I can say, hey, I was right at least once today.
Said no wife ever.
Right.
But yeah, social media, Google, a combination of everything. Digital marketing is really important. We do have a lot of Google, a lot of Facebook, but the people that get a word of mouth referral, like so-and-so tells their friend goes on our social media, their friend goes on our Google page. And if our Google stuff is not up to what their friend recommended, they won't come in. So it's a reinforcing, oh, okay, yeah, Bill mentioned it. They must be great. The reviews are great. Let me go check them out. But if Bill mentions it and the reviews are not good and the social media presence is not good, then it doesn't really matter what Bill said. Yeah. But we have social media, Google, Facebook marketing. I wanted to also tell you this with how our patients, we're not in a very small town. We're outside of Richmond. Richmond's a big city. Ashland is small, but not that small. I mean, my husband and I went out 2 weeks ago to the farmer's market, and it actually was an evening event similar to a farmer's market. And I think we had ran into 5 or 6 patients. And then the next day we went to the state county fair down in Chesterfield. And in the parking lot, we ran into 2 other patients. And Matt was like, I don't know who you are, but this is so uncomfortable. We can't go anywhere without everybody knowing you, and nobody knows me. Soon people will know him. But it's because of personality. I had a patient that I ran into at the state fair. He was backing up out of his car and he goes, I know you pulled my tooth yesterday, but I just had a funnel cake. Just the conversation that you would not, I mean, as dentists, you don't have such humorful conversations with patients. And the personality continues on to the relationship with the patient. The relationship will build a stronger memory in that patient's mind about you and to talk to you. If you're just a bland white piece of paper, you're probably not going to be a topic of conversation.
And the piece there that's so unique too, we hear this all the time, and I'm sure you get it too, even just running into your patients, but when you are running, especially ads on like social media like that, and your face is in it, which we always, recommend, show you who you are. And of course, you can highlight patients and their stories and things too, which is great. But you don't want to be the one to be like, I don't ever want to be on camera. But especially as a startup, we see it where people, even before they're open, which like even with you, Kriska, we ran ads 3 months or so before you even opened just to get the word out. People will be like, yeah, I was at the grocery store and someone was like, hey, you're that dentist I see on Facebook or that I see on Instagram. It's like, think about the power of that, because like you mentioned, it's like the buying decision isn't just, oh, I'm going to look at the first thing that I see and pick that dentist. It's like, you mentioned it. They may see you on Facebook a little bit. Then they may Google you. Then they're going to check out your reviews. They're going to see what people are saying. Then they're going to maybe go to the website, learn a little bit more about you all there. So it's having that omnipresence is, really what the key is. And I tell people it's the best tax write-off you can invest in because it's going to grow the practice ultimately. And you're a living example of that.
And building the brand, it helps build the brand because it's repetition. I was at that evening farmer's market and this lady, she didn't even know my name. She said, hey, it's that root lady. And it's like, you know what? As long as you know that I am associated with the word root, I have won. And for that, thank you.
There's worse things to be known for.
Yeah, like it was better than saying he hates that dentist.
Yes,
it's fine. Dentists don't have it better. The root lady is fine. But you've helped. I mean, your guidance has helped me so much on brand awareness. Our social media, our online presence, our marketing has been really, really good investment. Our ground marketing, partnering with Ashland Youth Soccer League, or brand on their jerseys, on the coaches' jerseys.
Which I have one too, and they're sweet.
Yes, and this year's came out, so I'm going to send you one for your daughter. It's so cute. It's got our logo on it. It doesn't matter that you're a couple states away. It's brand awareness, Shane.
Exactly. And I represent it too, let me tell you. And
I love that.
But sponsoring, like youth soccer team was a great investment, I think definitely. And yeah, it's just a cool swag. And like I said, I've got mine, framed up in my home office just because it's so cool. One other thing I want to talk about, and I always do this for those of you listening and regular listeners, I always try to keep these between 25 and 30 minutes, and we always go over because I get real into it. But I think this is really a key piece here is community collaboration, because you've mentioned your social media and the presence that you have there, the time you invest in that. You've mentioned the ads that you run and the notoriety there, and the ground marketing and the referrals. But then one of the things that you've also done is teamed up, I guess we could say teamed up, but partnered with another local business in the area. Can you talk a little bit about that collaboration, how it came about, and some of the things that you've been able to do together to kind of help each other?
Yeah. So I met this owner, Rana. She owns a med spa, actually 2 locations here in the Central Virginia area. And I met her through Chelsea from Brand Gloss, who just takes our office photos and any professional content we would need, like quick, hey, we're doing this. Can we get some photos? And Chelsea, a lot of her clients are female-owned businesses. And I had seen her post about Rana. And I asked Chelsea to connect us. Again, another shot at the dark. What am I going to get? No. And I said, hey, Rana, I'm a new business owner. Just opened my business. I see that you've built such a successful business and you're on your 2nd location. I wanted to see if we can collaborate. Maybe I can take some tips from you. Maybe you can teach me some stuff. Kind of just like the aesthetic she has to her brand and all this stuff. And she was so nice and said, yes, let's get together. Let's come. And she came over to my office and sat down, and we thought how we can collaborate with one another. And one thing was, Rana was like, well, hey, I want to offer dental services to my team. That's a benefit I want to offer. So maybe I can have your membership plan. Maybe we can offer your membership plan to my team, and then vice versa with just internal between the 2 businesses. And then we scaled it to a larger scale. Okay, how can we let your clientele know about my services and my clientele know about your services? We're both in the aesthetic field, right? Your smile is part of the whole aesthetic outcome. And I know, like, okay, Rana, when I do smiles, like my patients oftentimes complain about areas of wrinkle lines or things that the teeth can't fix. Sure, they can restore some of it, but maybe fillers are needed. That's a service you provide. How can I let my clientele know that that's a service that we have someone that we trust, we work with? And so we collaborated our web pages. So now on our website, you'll find information on Rana's business, which is Sage and Vine for anybody local here. And it'll say that the services that they provide to enhance your aesthetic outcome that you're looking for. And on her page, you'll find information on our business, on ways that you can improve your smile and cosmetically improve your facial features. And that has just been so nice because I know, and I don't know much about the SEO, but Shane will tell you that helps with our SEO, whatever that is. And on top of that, it's just been a resource. I was at Sage and Vine for a personal appointment of myself when I was behind the counter, and the lady in front of me was talking to the check-in girl about, oh, where did you get your Invisalign? Oh, how long have you been in your Invisalign? Where did you get it? And that girl is a patient of mine. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And it was just happening in front of me in real sight. And it's been such a cool collaboration. And take it to social media. We've taken it to a step further to social media. They had an event at their office, and our team went and we did Invisalign scans on patients and smile outcome simulators. And then those people came over to our office. I share her stuff. She shares my stuff. So anyway, I can go on days about how important collaborating with local businesses is. And even if you think this business has nothing to do with my business, Rana's team is setting up a day at our office where they're going to set up a table at our office for our patients and introduce themselves to the people that come to our office that day. So it's an ongoing relationship. I think as in dental school, it's such a competitive environment. Everyone's competing to have the highest ranking in the class so they can get into the residency. But you leave that environment and we're all a community, and it's let's help each other. Let's collaborate. Let's give advice to people that want advice, that ask you for advice. Collaborate with people that want to collaborate with you. Stop trying to keep your success internal. Together, we can be successful faster at a larger scale than just trying to be a gunner in this world on your own.
100%. Yeah, very, very well said. Well, as we wrap up here, I want to just ask you, now that you're coming up on your first year and being open in your fee-for-service startup practice, you've seen growth, you continue to grow, built a great team, all of these things. Certainly we know that it's not all roses, right? There's going to be trials and tribulations throughout the process, and that's part of business ownership. But I think you all definitely are crushing it and doing just a wonderful job. But for those listening who are considering practice ownership, whether it be going down the startup route, an acquisition, whatever the case is, I always like to ask, if you could have had somebody 2-3 years ago, knowing what you know now, give you a piece of advice, words of encouragement, anything like that, knowing what you know now, what is something that you would say to yourself then?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head that it's not always butterflies, but it's worth it. It's worth it. That's all I would say. It's worth it. There are days that are really, really hard. You question, why didn't I just stick to my associateship? Why didn't I just stick to my guaranteed PTO? Clock in, clock out, not my problem. So-and-so is not showing up to work, not my problem. Why didn't I stick to that? Because you're building somebody else's success. You're building somebody else. You're going every day to help somebody else be successful. If you want to be successful on your own, build your practice, do it. It's going to be hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it, but it is worth it. It's worth it.
Awesome. That's great advice, everybody listening. It's worth it. You're going to have highs and lows, but again, learn the skill set, zoom out, look at the big picture. And that puts everything in perspective. Kriska, thank you so
Shane,
much.
I'd like to add, I'd like to add to one thing I remember with you when we started early on working together. You told me the highs are really high and the lows are very low. And that has been, no truer words have been spoken in the business ownership. So I did want to add that, and I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, I'm glad you said that. It's it's like having a kid. For those of you, who've had children, it's like you have those days that are just like amazing, right? And you're like, oh, this is great. And then you have those days where it's just so challenging, so hard, but you just keep going. And I thought it was funny. You said your husband, Matt, earlier, you just said something like, told me at times, just keep going. And it reminded me of like, is it Finding Nemo or on Dory or something? Just keep swimming. That's what it kind of reminded me of. It's like, you got to have your Dory, So I think that's another piece that I would add is, do your best to try to find somebody, whether, it's a spouse, it's a good friend, a mentor, have somebody, or multiple people in your corner that's there that can, cheer you on, talk to you, give you advice. I think that's really important because you can't go it alone.
It is very important. My last week before opening, my mental headspace finally dropped. It was the week I was crying every single day. And my mother-in-law said, yep, we were waiting for this. We knew it was coming. And I had just reached rock bottom, but it was worth it. Here now, just keep swimming. It's worth it.
Yeah. And I'll end this on this quote because it reminds me when you're going through something like that and it's all new and it's scary and it's painful and you're stressed. It's like I read, I don't remember who said it, but they said, comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. And so, if it's like we're always comfortable all the time and not pushing ourselves in a healthy way, you don't develop that skill set to grow and learn. So I think that's something that's important for everybody. We're going to plug all the information down here below that we've talked about in the show notes, but Kriska, if there's a dentist out there, or somebody listening to this and they're like, hey, I would love to ask you a question, get some feedback on some things. What's the best way to reach out? Is it Instagram, Facebook? Plug away here.
Instagram messaging is probably really, I'll respond. Emails. Sometimes somebody will say, I just want to get this to the top of your inbox for you to remind you. Love those emails. Instagram messaging would probably from other dentists that want just advice, guidance. It's just more, it's less formal and it's just a friend to a friend, a colleague to a colleague. And please feel free to reach out if you need anything. I hope to share any advice that I have.
Definitely. And again, we'll plug that in the show notes, but it's at Root Modern Dentistry, and you'll see it, Dr. Kriska Mustafa, Virginia dentist, pop up there. Definitely check it out and see some of the really cool, neat things. We only touch, just scratch the surface as far as some of the things that they do, but I hope that this gives everybody a little bit of inspiration and ideas of, hey, you can do this, you can do a startup, you can do a fee-for-service startup, and you can achieve your goals and dreams, and you can be a multi-podcast veteran like Kriska is now, just not even a year into this. So thank you, Kriska, for being on here, and we loved just learning all about the practice, love the partnership that we have, and keep crushing it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Shane.